Google has always wanted to be the ultimate answer engine, always, right? And you can look at the rise of feature snippets. That was a step in that direction. And now with AI, they have the opportunity to become that, to become the ultimate answer engine. And ultimately, I think Google just wants to serve the best answer as quickly as possible. And I personally don't believe that they care too much about sending someone to the publisher site. Like, can we serve you this answer right now in a way that's easier than you going and trying to find it on this website? So I think all signs have pointed to that. And now we're to the point where it's actually out in the wild, and we'll have to see what happens from there.
Hi, and welcome to the Optimize podcast. My name is Nate Matherson, and I am your host. On this weekly podcast, we sit down with some of the smartest minds in content marketing and SEO. Our goal is to give you perspective and insights on what's moving the needle in organic search. Today, I'm thrilled to sit down with Zac Harris. Zac is an SEO and marketing leader and entrepreneur. On this week's episode, Zac and I chat about Google's new AI overviews, changing ranking factors, and his experience working on some fantastic SEO teams, including at companies like Copy AI, Animals, Craigslist, and SpyFu. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Optimize podcast. It's brought to you by Positional. If you don't know by now, my name's Nate, and I'm one of the co-founders of Positional. And we've built what I think is a pretty awesome tool set for content marketing and SEO teams. We've got tools for keyword research, internal linking, content optimization, and even a couple tools for analytics. We'd love for you to check it out at positional.com. Zac, thank you so much for coming on this week's episode of the Optimize podcast.
Of course. Thank you, Nate, for having me. I'm excited to jam out today.
You've had a really interesting career path in SEO. You've worked for companies like SpyFu, Animals, and most recently Copy AI. How did you get into the world of content marketing and SEO?
That's the $1 million question, right? Like we always ask other SEOs how they got started. I got started by accident. I never grew up and was like, yeah, I want to be like a content marketer or I want to be an SEO. I went to school for business and I always had, ambition and dreams of being an entrepreneur. So when I graduated from school, I'm like, hey, I like clothes. I don't know, maybe I can sell clothes, but I'm super broke. I don't have any money at all. I actually have no idea how to acquire customers. And I find myself on Black Hat World, the forum, if anyone's familiar with Black Hat World. And that's where I started learning about SEO. Believe it or not, was on Black Hat World. So I spun up a couple e-commerce sites and just started testing everything that I was learning on Black Hat World. Come to find out, a lot of what I was learning was, Black Hat. But you learn that the hard way, right? By getting penalized and things like that. And then you kind of, rebuild and start from zero. But yeah, that's where I got my start. I just wanted to build something for myself. I didn't have any money to do like paid acquisition. I couldn't run ads or anything like that. So when I started learning about SEO on Black Hat World, I'm like, hey, okay, so if I do this correctly, I should be able to acquire people without spending so much time. I just need to spend like my own personal time, no money, things like that. I can go ahead and make something work on that end. So that's what kicked it all off for me.
Yeah, Black Hat World, there's still some gems on Black Hat World. I actually found some helpful information on Black Hat World the other day. But yeah, I like to joke that like none of us like decide to get into content marketing and SEO when we're like 10 years old. It just kind of happens. And like, I, like you, kind of found content marketing and SEO as a, not a free customer acquisition channel, but one that I could put like some sweat equity into, early in my career. Given you've been in the SEO space for a number of years now, how has SEO changed or maybe even stayed the same over the last few years?
I'm really opinionated on this. I think the foundations, they haven't changed much, right? Like at times in our industry, there's really no central source of truth. So like everyone has an opinion. We all have our own opinions on algorithm updates or how SEO has changed. But what I found just over the years is following like the foundational items you're typically set up for success. The one thing that has changed, in my opinion, is really on the content side, right? Like historically, it was hard to produce content. And if you didn't have a team in house, you were likely working with a freelancer or using something like Text Broker, if you remember that, right? And like the quality of the content wasn't very good, but it was really cheap. So like folks are trying to figure out how to scale content. And then even like today, the quality piece was still missing. But today with AI, you can produce content easily. You could scale it easily. Now, 9 times out of 10, the content's not very good. But I think that the biggest difference again is within the content, and then also thinking through like how do you bring in your own perspectives into content, right? Like with the rise of AI and AI overviews, and folks just being genuinely unhappy with the results on the SERP. Like how do you bring in your own unique perspectives, like, your own insights that haven't been regurgitated all over the SERP? I think that's the biggest change, like outside of what you do to actually get a piece of content to rank, right? Like links still matter. I know Google said, oh, hey, they don't really matter that much. They still matter. Like I'll die on that hill. Right now, they still matter, right? Targeting matters. I always tell people you have to have the words on the page. Like you just have to. That's like base level. The word has to be on the page. The words have to be on the page. Internal linking still matters, right? Like all of this was a thing when I was starting out. Nothing's really changed so much there. But again, with the rise of AI overviews, I think the quality of the content, the perspective that you bring to the content and being like a canonical source of information will be really important moving forward. But I still don't think we're quite there yet. I still think it's a bit early.
The AI overviews are really just starting to roll out, it feels like. And, you know, there's been a lot of criticisms about the AI overviews thus far. I think, there was that one AI overview suggesting like to put glue in your pizza and some other AI overviews, which we probably should not mention. And I don't know. Do you think Google maybe like hits the pause button on the rollout of AI overviews, given a lot of the criticism they've been getting, or were they expecting this?
That's an interesting one. Like I've seen a lot of the examples on Twitter. I don't know how much of that is real. Like I was in the beta. So I've had them for, I don't know, last 6, 7 months, something like that at this point. I've tried to recreate some of what I've seen on the internet. I have not run into any of that. Not to say that you won't. With AI, the output is at times drastically different between, two inputs. But I haven't run into it. I think right now it's like cool to hate on Google. Not to say that like they're not setting themselves up for this. I don't think they roll it back personally. I think that would look horrible if they rolled it back. I think they'll probably do what they always do. They won't say too much about it. They'll probably, continue refining it and optimizing it to make it a better experience. But I personally have not run into any of what I'm seeing on the internet at all. So I see the examples. I haven't run into them yet as a user.
That's interesting you mentioned that, because I've tried to recreate some of these examples of Google getting it wrong in my Chrome browser, and I haven't been able to recreate them either. So every time I see one of these like totally bad AI overviews, I'm like, half of me kind of wonders, did like somebody manufacture this to get like a bunch of likes on Twitter, or is Google just like really quick at resolving these issues when they do pop up? I don't know. So I'm kind of skeptical now. Every time I see someone hating on the AI overviews, because I too haven't like seen anything too abnormal. They really just feel like featured snippets in a lot of ways. I was pretty surprised when like Google started putting AI overviews above featured snippets. So it goes like AI overview and then featured snippet. Do you think at some point Google might remove the featured snippet? Because they're kind of doing the same thing, right?
Yeah, personally, I think so. Like I agree with you. They're redundant at this point to have like the AI overview and then a featured snippet. And I know during the beta, you would have the AI overview, and at times the information in the AI overview would be drastically different than the featured snippet. And I'm like, okay, it's like which one? Like if I'm a user, which one do I actually go off of? Which one do I trust and which one do I use? So I think they're going to have to at some point.
It's something I've noticed that I thought was kind of interesting is like the featured snippets usually pull the text identically from the web page that it's pulling from. Whereas, well, like I saw our website get included in one of these AI overviews for the first time. And it actually was like Google was paraphrasing what we were saying. So they were taking like our words and then almost rearranging them or saying it slightly differently. But the core of what we were saying was still there. I don't know what the better approach is for searchers. Maybe I guess they would think it makes sense to rewrite text in their own words, and that would provide a better experience than a traditional featured snippet. What do you think?
That's interesting because, their MO is, you think about like title tags, right? Like they love rewriting your title tags. So it's just like that. I feel like internally, maybe they feel like they can paraphrase the text and create, I don't want to say like a more comprehensive answer, but like if they're pulling from multiple sources, maybe something that's a little bit more coherent. Um, to me, that's a slippery slope though. I'm curious, when you saw your site in the AI overview, were you in like the link pack as well? You know how it cites the sources at the bottom?
Yeah, we were like right in the middle of the link pack. So there was like 3 of the source boxes, including ours. And I think that like 2/3 of the AI overview were pulled from our page. So I don't know. In some ways, it's a little bit frustrating. Like 2/3 of this featured snippet AI overview came from our page, but they're also showing 2 other sources next to ours. I have to ask you a tough question, because in a recent interview with Barry Schwartz, a Google spokesperson, I want to make sure that I get their name correctly here. Recently, a Google spokesperson, Hema Bujaru. I apologize, Hema. I'm totally pronouncing your name wrong. Hema Bajaru said that they actually think that these AI overviews might lead to more traffic going back to publishers, and that they saw that the click-through rate on AI overviews was actually higher back to publishers than it was from normal SERP listings. And this Google spokesperson actually compared it to featured snippets. And so, that got the SEO world buzzing. Like, can these AI overviews actually send more traffic back to our website? That's kind of what Google is saying. What do you think? Do you believe them, or you think these AI overviews are going to reduce the amount of traffic that people get back to their website?
Yeah, personally, I don't believe them, but I hope I'm wrong. Like I really hope I'm wrong, and I know it's still early. I think as we have more time with AI overviews, right, and more publishers and sites are being included in them, we will be able to look back on the data and know for sure. I think, of course, Google is going to say that. They're not going to say, "Hey, we're going to send publishers less traffic." I personally don't think they would ever say that. So to me, it's like that. It's the corporate PR speak. Um, I've always thought, I mean, man, I was saying this back in like 2015, 2014. I always believed that like Google has always wanted to be the ultimate answer engine. Always. Right. And like you can look at the rise of feature snippets, that was a step in that direction. And now with AI, they have the opportunity to become the ultimate answer engine. And of course, like, SEOs have always had debates over, like user signals. If someone pogo sticks, like they click on your result and then they bounce back to the SERP and click on something else. Does that help you rank? Does it, impact you? Things like that. And ultimately, I think Google just wants to serve the best answer as quickly as possible. And I personally don't believe that they care too much about sending someone to the publisher site. Like, can we serve you this answer right now in a way that's easier than you going and trying to find it on this website? So I think all signs have pointed to that. And now we're to the point where it's actually out in the wild, and we'll have to see what happens from there.
Yeah, I guess the risk for Google is that if they stop sending traffic back to publishers, then maybe it disincentivizes websites from creating new helpful content, maybe. And then there's less helpful content for searchers in the future. We talked with Brian Dean on this podcast about 6 months ago, and I asked him like how worried he was about SGE at the time, AI overviews. And he equated it to like mobile. I guess when like, mobile was first coming out, like everyone was worried that like the SERP results are going to get pushed way far down on that mobile screen. But actually what happened is that, people searched more and more. And so even if like click-through rate was lower, like the total number of searches was actually increasing dramatically. And I've heard some folks like say that might happen with these AI overviews. Like if the AI overviews are so good and Google is providing such a great answer faster, then maybe people will search in Google more and more. And like the net effect to publishers could be that there's a lower click-through rate, but in aggregate, there's a much larger number of searches and that makes up for it. Do you believe that, or do you buy it?
I could see it, honestly. I could see it. And the more I sit here and think about the output from some of the AI overviews, while you're typically getting an answer, like if you really want to dive deep into the topic, you have no choice but to click through to one of the sources. There's an interesting exchange. Oh, I want to say maybe it was last week or the week before. John Henry, which I think from Growth Place.
Yeah, we had him on the pod.
Yeah, it's good friend of mine. He I think he replied to like a tweet of Rand Fishkin, where Rand was actually being cited in one of the AI overviews about like his setup. I think. I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was talking about like his camera and things like that.
This happened. Yeah, I remember seeing the tweet.
But like the answer in the AI overview was so high level. Like, I mean, you got the answer, but if you wanted to like understand what exactly the setup was or like how to optimize it or things like that, you would have to click through to the source. So I could see it. I think we're at this point where the quality of the search results has decreased pretty drastically. And I'm probably going to catch a lot of heat for saying this, but it's our fault. It's like SEO, it's our fault. Like we have contributed to this sea of sameness. And then everyone started searching, they started slapping Reddit to the end of their queries, myself included, because I wanted to hear from like real people. And then Google over-indexed on that. And now people aren't happy about that either. So they're kind of like at this really important point in time where they have the ability to provide answers quickly. I think people will search more if they're satisfied with the answers that they're getting, but that may not be. I just don't know yet how that shakes out. Like, do we get more clicks from that, or do we not? As the technology continues to improve, of course the AI overviews are going to get better as well. So the future landscape of SEO to me is. There's some uncertainty right now. I'm not too worried about it. I don't think it's ever going to go away. I think it'll look a lot different though.
Does this change how we do keyword research or like think about the keywords we want to cover? Like certain keywords feel like they might just be a lost cause. But then like, I Googled like how to change a tire the other day and saw like an AI overview, but like there's no way I could actually change a tire, like knowing the information I got from the AI overview. So I actually have to click onto something to learn more. But from like a keyword research standpoint, do we now need to like, think critically about some of those keywords that we might have wanted to go after in the past, knowing that there might be a lower click-through rate?
Yeah, for sure. And I actually think like we should have changed how we approach keyword research years ago. Just to be completely honest with you, I know, like, I know it's SEOs, right? Like we love being able to point and say, hey, look, like this is up and to the right? Like clicks are up, impressions are up. And there's nothing wrong with that. But like, I strongly believe, right, we are still marketers at the end of the day. If you're in-house or agency, we have to provide value beyond impressions and clicks. And the trap that I see most SEOs and most like specifically SaaS companies fall into, they chase after high volume keywords that are like tangential to the business, and they scale out all this content and they get a bunch of traffic, but none of it converts. So they've spent thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on how much content they produced, right? Chasing after these high volume keywords that are like hyper top of funnel. It doesn't support the business, doesn't move the business forward at all, but it looks really good on a chart. Looks really good in Ahrefs, something like that. I see that time and time and time and time again. And I think where that misstep happens is in the keyword research. Instead of thinking through like, okay, do we have a sales team? Can I speak to the sales team? Can I watch the calls that are in Gong? Can I summarize the calls that are in Gong with AI to understand like what are prospects asking us? What are they actually looking for? Right. And start to kind of build from there, kind of build out your topic map from there versus jumping into the tools right away. So that's something that I've felt for many years. So long-winded way of answering your question, but yes, I definitely think like it will change and should change how we approach and think about doing keyword research, especially with the AI overviews in the mix as well.
Yeah, I know JH does not like the what is keywords either. um, and I did see a recent tweet of his though. I think like one of his clients closed like a 6-figure plus deal from like a what is SEO, not specifically what is SEO, but like a what is keyword like that. And he either was jokingly saying he changed his mind on what is keywords or not. I'm not totally sure. I'll have to get to the bottom of that. But yeah, I totally agree with you. Totally agree with you that like traffic doesn't equal dollars. And like, while it might feel nice to drive a lot of traffic, if it's not actually converting any customers or booking any demos, and then what is it worth? I totally also agree with you that, seeking inspiration for keywords from, sales calls or customer support or whatever it might be is a great activity. I actually love the keywords where you go in a keyword research tool and there's like no search volume, but like you keep hearing that same question over and over again in the sales process. Like that's probably a keyword we should target regardless of what like a keyword research tool might say.
100%. And something I'd add to this as well, when I was at Copy AI, two parts here. When I first joined Copy AI, the blog specifically, it was pulling in a decent amount of traffic. I think at one point it's like 25,000 clicks a month or something like that to the blog. But the content was so irrelevant, had nothing to do with the business at all, like at all. So of course we saw zero conversions from that content. I actually removed all the content. So our traffic went down. We started producing content that was actually relevant to the business, the problem that we were solving. Conversions went way up. Like we didn't get back to a point where we were at like 25, 30,000 clicks a month from the blog itself, but we were able to supplement that with like tools and templates. And at the time, to your point of like doing keyword research and not seeing any search volume, this was pre-ChatGPT. So there weren't very many searches for like a paragraph AI paragraph generator, AI paragraph rewriter, or templates like that, because it was so early on. There was no ChatGPT. Like the hype cycle hadn't really started quite yet. It was Copy AI and Jasper, and that was pretty much it. It was hard to use AI. So going and doing the keyword research, there was nothing there, but we knew everyone loves our tools and templates. Like people will, if they're not searching now, they will be searching for this in the future. So, that was kind of the inspiration to build out the tools and templates, which was a huge part of us growing at Copy AI.
Yeah, SEO isn't just blog posts. It sometimes is. But so it sounds like at Copy AI, you guys had a lot of success with like tools, templates, like almost like a product-led SEO strategy or in some sense.
Yeah, 100%. Like we went from roughly like non-blog 15,000 clicks a month to over 1 million clicks a month, little under a year. And a lot of that was from tools and templates. And the beauty of it, folks converted from the tools and templates. So it was a win-win because we were able to point and say, like we all want to, hey, traffic's up, but also we have 700,000 conversions from this stuff, which was amazing.
And now just a quick word from one of our sponsors, actually our only sponsor, that is Positional.com. Positional has what I think is an awesome tool set for content marketers. We've got everything you need to take you from start to finish and help you scale this channel, as I've done over the last 11 years of my career. We'd love for you to check it out at Positional.com. I'll ask you a question. And so at Positional, right, we're building like our own blog. Like we've got, I think at this point, like 90 blog posts. We're trying to build our own SEO strategy. And I see the tools and templates keywords. I see them like, keyword difficulty checker or, domain authority checker, like where it's like clear someone is looking for a tool. But I look at these keywords and I'm like, I just don't think we could rank for them right now. And so like we've kind of taken the stance from an SEO standpoint that with our site, we have to lead with topical authority. And that's what we've been doing for like the last 6 months, like lead with our blog, knowing that eventually we'll be able to try to hit some of these tools and templates keywords. We just can't get them out of the gate. And so we know they're there. We know we want to get them, but we just have this feeling that we can't get them right now. And so I guess I'm going to ask you a question on our strategy. Should we go after those right now, even knowing that we probably can't rank for them? Or does it make sense to wait like we've been doing to try to build the site first and then introduce those tools and templates pages?
Personally, I would say wait, like continue doing what you're doing now. Like if that's working, continue to double down on that. You may also, I'm sure as you already know, right? Like you may be able to find some variations of, like for the keywords, for the tools, or maybe a little less competitive that you could potentially jump on. There may be an opportunity to go after those longer tail variants. And I'll give you an example. The first batch of tools that we created at Copy AI, we were targeting Instagram caption tool, right? XYZ tool, sales copy tool. And I noticed there's a lot of competition here. I probably will never rank on this, like on the tool modifier. So I started doing research around generator, because like people, when they were talking about AI, they're like, oh yeah, like I'm going to generate some copy. I'm going to generate this. So people started to use that more. So I just changed all of the targeting, moved it away from tool all over to generator. Less competitive, still had tons of search volume, right? It was like, we still were able to capture the same amount of people. So there may be an opportunity on that end. But as you're building up your blog and doubling down on that, you'll have tons of internal linking opportunities as well to kind of help those tools rank better.
I want to take a step back to AI generated content. I know you mentioned it earlier on this podcast, and I think Copy AI is a tool that helps you generate AI generated content, I think, or at least that's what it started out as. And so I guess my question to you is, should we be using AI generated content as part of an SEO strategy?
I get this question a lot. Disclaimer, I am not the spokesperson for AI in marketing, but I personally have been using AI every day for almost everything that I do. And it's been a value add to me, right? So some of the use cases, think of like programmatic SEO, right? Like it's hot right now. It's not new. So if you're like a new SEO, programmatic SEO is not a new thing. It's not a new concept. It's been around for a while. Remember the days where we used to have to figure out how we're going to get the data into a database. How do we pull that? How do we structure the pages? I've used Copy AI specifically to help build content for programmatic pages at scale, building like what they call workflow. So it's an AI automation. Like that's really helpful. So if you're a national business, you have location pages, you can use AI to help kind of, fill out those pages. If you have template pages, you can use AI to help fill those pages out. The tools and templates at Copy AI were 100% AI generated. All of them never got penalized, never ran into any issues there. They were a huge part of our strategy. But when it comes to long form content, I think that's where most of the pushback happens. I strongly believe that if you give a lazy marketer AI, you're just scaling their laziness, right? I think that's like so true. And most people equate AI with ChatGPT. Like, oh yeah, hey, write me a blog post about the 10 best SEO rank tracking tools. Yeah, the piece of content is going to suck. It's not going to be any good, like objectively speaking, if you compare it to the rest of the SERP. But what I found as a unlock with AI, take like 10, 15 minutes. I do this. I use something like Otter, and I'll pull up a topic that I want to write about, and I'll just talk, just random thoughts. Whatever I think about the topic, I'll just talk. So I have the transcript. Then I built out a workflow to take my transcript and the keyword. It'll build out my content brief, my outline, and my first draft using my transcript. So it doesn't have to source from the internet. It's not pulling from the internet, right? It's pulling from my perspective, what I think about the topic. And that's been a huge unlock for me. So if you're going to use AI, I would strongly suggest use it that way versus just going to something like ChatGPT or Claude and just throwing out, hey, I need a blog post about the 10 best SEO tools.
Yeah, I like how you've described it. Like an AI writing tool helps in, I don't know, what was the word you used? Not uneducated or inefficient. It was lazy. It helps a lazy marketer scale their laziness. Yeah, I've kind of come around to like AI writing tools when there is a clear use case for them. Like we had like one of our customers published like 800 ChatGPT blog posts to their blog, and none of the pages ranked or indexed even. And like that didn't work. But then like on this podcast, we talked with Alex, the CEO of this company called Greg, and like they've used programmatic SEO. They tap their own UGC data source to as like the input for an AI writing tool, and they create some really helpful and unique pages that you can't find anywhere else on the internet. I was looking at Google's like helpful content guidelines again the other day, and one of the bullet points that jumps out at me is like, does your content provide substantial value when compared to other pages in the search results? And if you're simply just prompting ChatGPT to write you a 1,500 word article, you're not going to get anything new. But in that approach you've described, where you're actually like transcribing your thoughts, your opinions, your perspectives, and then using an AI writing tool to help kind of fill in the gaps, I think that's an interesting approach, because you'll still be able to add value, say something unique that the other search results can or don't today. I promise we'll get to the outline. Like we've been talking for like 30 minutes, and I don't think I've asked you a single question yet
It's all good.
from the outline. So let's jump into the outline. I want to talk a little bit about helpful content. There's been the helpful content update. There was the March core update. And earlier on this podcast, you said that you think the search results have been getting worse. Google has said that they've reduced unhelpful content in the search results by 45%. I guess my question to you is, what do you make of like the recent algorithm updates?
They've been pretty interesting. That's for sure. I think some of them have been a long time coming, like the site reputation abuse, right? Like that was a good one with, all these publishers trying to lean into the coupon game. So I was happy to see that one. Outside of that, I do think they are making an effort to make the SERP more helpful, but I think it's so tough because of like the playbook most of us are running. Like I read this piece from Will Reynolds at Seer. It was all about like the sea of sameness, and in this piece, he talks about how they produced a piece of content about RFPs, like specifically for SEO. And they were following the same old playbook, right? Like who's ranking? Okay, let's get an idea of what they're doing. Let's do some of that. How can we add a little bit to it, right? But ultimately, he thought the piece wasn't very helpful, right? So he wanted to break it down and really think through, like, how can we be helpful with this piece of content? But it goes against the playbook to rank today. And when he made the changes initially, they dropped. Like they dropped like a brick, but now they're holding down the number one position. And he makes a really good point in there of like, if you search for anything, right, most of the results are going to be pretty similar. Most of them, down to the title tag, like they are very similar because we're all running that same playbook. And having worked at like an SEO tool, like, with keyword and competitive research, yeah, let's do this content gap analysis, kind of get the same idea, and then you go from there. So to me, like helpful content, yes, it should answer the question, but I think the time to value, like give people what they want right away and make it easy for people to navigate to find exactly what they need, because Nate may be searching for one thing, Zac may be searching for something else. Like I don't need, a huge introduction. I don't care about the introduction. If I'm searching for something, I just want the answer. But as I mentioned earlier, bring in your own perspective. Like what perspective or unique insight can you add into the content that no one else on the SERP can add into the content? Whether it's your lived experience, an opinion you have, like add that into the content versus just blindly copying whatever's out there. And I think that's how you get to that helpful content. And I think Google is making some strides there, but I think it's going to be really hard because we're all following the same playbook. So they remove some of the unhelpful content, but still the SERP looks largely the same.
Yeah, no, I was reviewing the Google search quality rater guidelines again last week, and I saw a really interesting section. It was experience versus expertise. Essentially, Google called out this like issue, like essentially, should they prioritize a web page that highlights experience, or should they prioritize a web page that is of expertise? And like it's in the guidelines, it kind of sounds like it's a balancing act. Like you can have both experience and expertise, or you can have one or the other. But it also sounds like for certain queries they want experience, for certain queries they want expertise. And it actually felt a little bit more black and white to me. And so yeah, it's something I've been thinking a lot about lately, because like with our content, like I try to write from my personal like experiences. I try to tell that story. Like, there's an article on our site about guest blogging. I talk about like 300 guest blogs that I've written, but then I also try to back it up with like expertise, like sourcing and, when I'm making a claim, backing it up. So I think it is a balancing act. It's definitely frustrating for a lot of website owners that have written from experience for the last 6 years and their websites have been totally crushed. I guess what would you say to someone who's like websites down like 85% in traffic over the last 6 months? What do they do?
First thing I would say is I'm sorry, because I can only imagine, right? Like, especially if that's your source of income, like your sole source of income, that is horrible, right? It's crushing. And I've seen a lot of examples of this actually, like on the internet, of like folks who they have both like experience and expertise, but they still got hit. In terms of what to do, that's tough. I mean, that's tough because I think right now we all have theories. Everyone has a theory. Like, I don't think anyone has found a silver bullet on like, hey, how do we reverse this trend? If someone found one, please send it to me, because I have yet to see one. But I think we all have theories, right? So like for these folks out there, if you're thinking about working with someone, I think understanding that they're going to be like, they're going to try to validate their theories. And ultimately, it may not work, because most times you get hit, right, you don't have very many answers. Google's not telling you much of anything at all. And you could be doing everything right and still somehow get hit, which I have also seen. Like recently, like last week, someone that I was talking with, they did all the right things, but they still got hit. Then we had to have that conversation of like, hey, all I have is theories at this point. I don't know for sure because you've done everything right. So yeah, it's interesting. It's unfortunate, and yeah, I'm not honestly, I'm not sure where to go from there.
Yeah, did you see that tweet from John Mueller the other day? Somebody like tweeted at him and they were like, "Hey, John, I've like fixed all these issues with my site. It's helpful now. Like, when is the helpfulness classifier going to get removed?" And he said like, "Oh, like, next big core update, like keep your eye out." Like, do you think like during the next core update, like a bunch of sites are going to bounce back, or no?
I don't think I can say with confidence yes, but I definitely hope. I hope so. One thing I will say is I'm curious to get your thoughts on this too. I don't think SEO has ever been like the playing field has never been level, like ever. in my opinion, right? Like, so if you're large, well-known publication, like we did see some of them get hit with like the coupon thing, right? For example, but you can get away with a lot, and you could do a lot of bad SEO and still be totally fine. But for like a small publisher, they they don't have that flexibility to do bad SEO. And like one misstep, or literally, as I mentioned, they could be doing everything right. They could somehow get hit by an algorithm update. It just crushes their business while they see XYZ publisher, larger publisher, just crushing it, doing all the wrong things. I think that's like one of the unfortunate realities of the space that we work in.
Yeah, I was talking to like a member of a content and SEO team at like this very large, national publisher, DR90, something like that. And like he joked with me, he's like, yeah, we just can publish a web page and the content could totally suck, but it's going to be on the first page of Google in the next 30 minutes. And I'm like, damn, that must be easy. Um, but yeah, I do think the helpful content system is running continuously now. That is my theory, because like one of our customers, their site made it through the March update, it made it through the September update, no problems. And then they introduced like hundreds of new, very low quality pages to their site. And immediately after they did that, like the rankings for the entire site like fell off the face of the earth. And so like I wonder if they like tripped a wire, and like by rolling out all of this unhelpful content, they tripped that classifier onto their site. And I know Google says like the classifier should apply at a page level, but then it maybe bubbles up to a site level classifier. It's not totally clear, but my thought is that the helpful content system is just generally running now. And like, as SEOs now, like at any point, like it doesn't need to be an algorithm update. Like things could change. So that has me kind of on edge, even with our own website. Like it feels like every new article or page I need to publish has to be a great one. Otherwise, like I might trip some sort of a wire. And so to my opinion, it almost feels like more like I don't know, I'm more scared to be an SEO now than ever. But I don't know. Do you think that Google rolls back the helpful content update anytime soon?
No, I definitely don't think so. I have this wacky theory. Maybe it's not too wacky, but put on your tinfoil hat here. I think one thing that I was thinking about, I think is, Google has grown and technology has advanced, and they've, changed ranking systems. They've added in machine learning, right? I'm almost wondering if most of the algorithms at this point are a black box, and they may have intentions on X happening, but when it's released, that's not actually what happens. And then no one can really answer to it because no one knows what's going on. Like I think I read some thread on Reddit, maybe it was a couple of months ago, from someone who had claimed to have been like, now you got to take that as a grain of salt. They claimed to have worked on Google search, and kind of alluded to that of like, it's kind of a black box, and like no one really understands how any of this is actually working. And I'm like, maybe this is actually true. Like the more that I'm like seeing these things roll out, seeing like sites that are perfectly fine just get obliterated, you start thinking like, hey, maybe there is some truth to this. And then it doesn't help that like Google doesn't give anyone a straight answer on anything.
Yeah, Google may have like lost control of the algorithm in some sense. Like they don't understand those inputs maybe as well as they used to. And I've heard like Danny Sullivan talk about like correlation. Like the algorithm looks to like correlate signals from your website to signals of what they believe are high quality websites. And maybe just like one of those signals is off and like your website was negatively impacted. But yeah, I mean, if, I'm sure like we go on Twitter and we see all of these websites that shouldn't have been negatively impacted, but Google probably doesn't care. Like, if they accidentally remove like 3% of helpful websites, but they remove 45% of unhelpful websites, then it's probably a win for them.
It's a really good point. Cost of doing business at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, I know there's been a lot of talk lately about like Chat GPT launching a search engine, and I feel like you know that business quite well, given your time in the ecosystem. Do you think like Chat GPT will launch some sort of search engine or search product here in the year ahead?
Yeah, but potentially. I think the recent move was pretty interesting, with making the latest model free 4.0. I thought maybe at the event they would release a search engine. There were some rumors of them doing that, but they didn't. They showed the voice assistant, which was like mind blowing. I know there's some controversy there around the voice right now. Uh, but the fact that they made 4.0 free, to me, I think at some point they'll be close enough to release a search engine. I don't think creating a new search engine is hot right now, though. Like you have Perplexity that's on the scene. Copy AI actually partnered with Perplexity. I use Perplexity quite a bit, mainly for research. I think it's really good. But maybe I'm like an old man yelling at clouds. I still use Google. Like I know Bing had like lots of improvements. I still use Google. I haven't switched over to Bing. I still use Google every day. And even if ChatGPT launches a search engine, I could be wrong here. I probably will be wrong, but we are in a bubble. I think about my wife, my brother, my extended family. None of them use AI. None of them even care about AI. Like when they search, they're still searching on Google. Like some of them even use Bing and Yahoo, which is still Bing, but like, you know what I mean? Like they're so far removed from our world. So like we're still in it. So I see all the conversations of, I don't use Google anymore. I use ChatGPT. Okay. Like I'm sure there's a small percentage of that, but the majority of people are not going to change as quickly. Like we're early adopters. Um, so maybe I don't think it's a smart move. Um, for them to do that at all. I just don't see I don't know. I don't see where it fits well with kind of what I've seen from them so far and where I think they want to go. I know they keep talking about AGI, but
Google's market share has been pretty consistent over the last year. And yeah, my mom is definitely not going to perplexity.ai to get any information anytime soon. Um, one more question before we get to the lightning round. Like a lot of the listeners of this podcast are startups, startup founders looking to build SEO channels. And I get asked this question a lot. It's a hard question to answer, but I'm going to ask you, when is the right time for a startup to start working on SEO?
yesterday, no kidding. What you need to do, especially in a startup environment, is look at the business model and look at the folks you're trying to serve to like better understand how they go about doing business. I've worked with startups in the past where they've invested millions of dollars into paid acquisition and crushed it. Didn't even think about SEO. And then when they got to the point like, hey, we figured this channel out. We've nailed this core channel. Now we want to think about SEO and how we can kind of scale this out. But they understood where their customers were, right? Like what platforms their customers spent time on. I think that's really important. I think everybody wants to do SEO or like they see someone else with these crazy numbers and they're like, hey, I want to do SEO. I couldn't tell you, Nate, the amount of DMs I got when I published the numbers from Copy AI. Everyone wants 1,000,000 clicks, but I have to tell everyone, hey, you probably won't get 1,000,000 clicks in a month. And that's totally okay. That's totally fine. Because ultimately, like we want to build a channel that's going to drive revenue for you. So yeah, take a step back and look at what you're doing more holistically. Understand how your customers are buying. Where do they hang out at? Like, are they actually using search to find your product or services? What are they searching? Like, I've worked with companies in robotics. Like they're robotic startups. Nobody is searching to buy, like robotics as a service. They're just not. Like, that's just the fact. So in those conversations, like, hey, there's actually not a lot of opportunity here. You should double down on the channels that you know aren't working and that you proved out there. So I feel like that was kind of a non-answer, So I guess like the short of it is like understand your business, understand who you're selling to, and really figure out where they spend their time. Not everyone searches for everything. Your buyer may not search for what you're offering. They may be on, I don't know, LinkedIn. They may be on Facebook. They may be on Instagram. They may not search very much, and that's okay. But yeah, know the channels that are working for you now. If you're currently acquiring customers through whatever channel, double down on that. If it's SEO, great, double down on that. If not, double down on paid. Then start to think about SEO if it makes sense for your business and your customers.
Love that. Yeah, with many things in SEO, it depends.
Hence, yeah. I didn't
I've
want to
got
say it, but you said it, so it's all good.
you got to put that on a t-shirt. Like, like it depends. Optimized podcast. Um, I've got five lightning round questions for you. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. And the first is AI overviews. Can we optimize for them? Is there a way to like get our page included into an AI overview?
Ooh, short answer, I have no idea. I don't think anyone knows yet because it's so early. The only thing I can speak to is on the ChatGPT side. I have seen that like if you rank well, you do well on Bing, you'll typically be cited in ChatGPT. But for the AI overviews, I have not found anything yet that's concrete to say, hey, if we do X, Y will happen and we'll be in the AI overview. I think that'll come out over time.
You mentioned backlinks early in this episode. You said that they were important. Why are backlinks important in 2024? Or I guess I should say, like, why wouldn't backlinks be important in 2024?
I think backlinks will, they're still important now. I think brand mentions will be even more important. As we kind of lean into the AI side of things. But how I've looked at backlinks has not changed. They're votes, they're votes of confidence from other sites. So I think you still need those, especially if you're a smaller site. You need links to compete. Like I would give anyone a challenge. If you're a new site, write a piece of content. Don't build any links at all. Write 100 pieces of content, build no links, and see if you rank at all. You won't. I won't say probably, you won't rank. So for newer, smaller sites, you definitely need links. They help you rank better. They're votes of confidence. You need those as you're building up. Larger brands don't need links very much. I don't think SEMrush needs to build links. Copy AI at this point, they don't need to build links. But if you're starting out or you're smaller, links are still important.
It cracks me up when I get the like, hello, sir, please link to my website from like legit, like large companies. Like I got one from Adobe the other day. Like Adobe was trying to get me to link to something. And I'm like, you don't need to be building backlinks
At all.
No, yeah, just mix up the internal links or something like that. Um, I asked this question once in a while, but like given 100 grand, so you've got 100 grand and you have to stick it in OpenAI at like a $90 billion valuation or Google at a $2.2 trillion valuation, and you can't touch it for 10 years. Which would you rather stick it in?
My first thought was, yeah, OpenAI, but actually, I think Google, and I'll explain why. We're still so early on in the world of like model providers. I personally think Anthropic has better models than OpenAI, right? And at Copy AI, we're model agnostic because we strongly felt like we have no idea who's going to be the leader in this space. Like, yeah, OpenAI is hot right now, but who knows what happens in the next 10, 15, 20 years. It may be Anthropic. It may be someone else that we haven't even thought of yet. Um, I know people love to hate on Google right now, but I think Google's always going to be Google. They'll figure it out at some point. Um, I don't know what's going to happen with OpenAI. Maybe they're a leader, maybe not. So I'll go with Google.
Is there one startup that is just totally crushing it with SEO right now that, we could look at and say, hey, this is one to emulate?
Yeah. Can I say Copy AI? No, I'm kidding. No. Yeah, I think Motion has done a pretty good job. Use Motion. Yeah, they scaled out quite a bit. Most of it is top of funnel. Like they've recently started producing some things lower in the funnel as well. but they've done a pretty good job. Of course, like I'm biased, but at Copy AI, we did all right. We did okay. Um, Vanta is another one that I'm a fan of as well. So I gave you three. There you go.
Yeah, I've talked to Gary over there at Motion, and it sounds like they've got a pretty aggressive content SEO strategy, and it looks like it's working quite well for them. And my final question is, what's next for you? I know that you recently left Copy AI, and what are you looking forward to in the next year?
Yeah, it was great to take some time off. I think what's next for me, I'm gonna jump back into the consulting side of things. I've always had, the itch to go out and do my own thing. And I think like my recent experience and even being an agency side as well, I learned more than enough to jump into this head on and like really do what I'm passionate about and work with, folks who are building cool stuff and try to help them scale that up.
So, are you currently taking clients for SEO consultant?
I am. I'll have a site
All
up
right.
soon.
And well, before the site comes up, and we will go back and add a link to it if when it does go live in the show notes. But like for the next week, how can people get in touch with you?
LinkedIn's perfect. I'm on LinkedIn, trying to be active on LinkedIn. So if anyone reaches out to me, I'll get back to them ASAP.
All right. Well, Zac, I've had so much fun on this episode, and I don't think we covered hardly any of the questions from the episode outline that I put together. So we'll have to have you back at some point because there's like 15 other things I need to ask you. But thanks again for coming on this week's episode.
Of course. Thank you, Nate.
And that's a wrap. And I just want to thank our sponsor, Positional. They've got what is a pretty awesome tool set for content marketers and SEOs. They've even got a couple tools for social media. We'd love for you to check out Positional and the tool set that we've created over the last 15 months at positional.com. And you can always reach out to me if you have any questions. My email is nate@positional.com. Whether you've got questions about our tool set or comments and complaints or even positive feedback about this podcast, I'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button wherever you are listening to this podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. Bye.